Our first speaker is Frank Emil Sanshis III from the World Monuments Fund. Frank Sanshis joined World Monuments Fund as Program Director in 2010. He has significant experience in architecture, preservation, and planning, and holds a BA in architecture from the Pratt Institute and an MS in historic preservation from Columbia University. Before joining World Monuments Fund, he served as Executive Director of the Municipal Arts Society. Earlier in his career, he served as Vice President for Stewardship of Historic Sites for the National Trust for Historic Preservation and Executive Director of the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. I'm like super intimidated right now. I should have read this earlier. He is the author of American Architecture, Westchester County, New York, illustrated largely with his own photographs. Mr. Sanchez currently serves on the boards of the Catskill Center for Conservation and Development, the City Club of New York City, and the Preservation League of New York State. Please help me welcome Frank.
I'm terrified. Okay, let's go. The World Monuments Fund is a 50-year-old American nonprofit organization working globally to show how heritage preservation can affect social change. We're based in New York. We have about 50 employees. Our signature is the watch, through which we focus our efforts on 25 buildings chosen every 2 years. Buffalo Central Terminal was listed on the 2018 watch. So was the Sirius building in Sydney, Australia. Central Terminal's rehabilitation holds promise as an economic driver for Buffalo. The preservation of Sirius is inextricably linked to the history of social justice. Sirius was designed in 1975 and completed in 1980. It's a purpose-built 79-unit apartment house with about 200 public housing residents. It's a rare and intact example of late brutalist-style architecture as applied to social housing in Australia. Sirius was designed by government architect Theo Gophers, who was recently characterized as follows. Theo Gophers is not famous, nor is he rich. He's fairly ordinary, in fact, but Gophers did something extraordinary that has become a lightning rod for debate about how Australia's cities should develop. He designed Sirius. This is Gophers' original model. Sirius is located in the Rocks, an area near the Harbor Bridge, which is filled with low-scale old buildings and public housing. In the late 1960s, Robert Askin, Australia's answer to Robert Moses, decided to relocate the public housing to the suburbs and develop the area commercially. He planned to use local labor. Local labor did not want to do it. The unions insisted that the construction of apartments was more important than office buildings, and they intervened with a Green Bans campaign. Government was forced to rethink its options. In 1973, local residents developed the People's Plan, providing that residents should be allowed to stay in the area and historic buildings retained. Gophers worked closely with the community, exploring a range of unit designs to accommodate diverse family and demographic types. Of the 79 units in Sirius, nearly 70% have balconies, roof gardens, or private courtyards. Here you can see how close the building is to the bridge. Sirius was designed to step down on either end with a high tower in the middle. Now, the hottest area in town, the Rocks is adjacent to the Sydney Opera House. Real estate values have skyrocketed along with the value of the Sirius building, which is still public housing. About 4 years ago, government decided to cash in and sell Sirius and started vacating the building. Without any historic protections, Sirius came under the threat of demolition. In response, a local citizen group called Save Our Sirius was formed in 2015. They crowdfunded a legal challenge to government's decision not to recognize Sirius. They had a big rally, and the result of that was a green ban placed on the site again, and they reached out to World Monuments to put it on the watch. Government still failed to list the buildings. The brutalist style remains very unpopular in many parts of the world, and brutalist buildings are rapidly disappearing. In fact, Gophers said that initially Sirius endured 10 to 15 years of intense negative criticism. Not everyone agreed that Sirius's board-formed concrete and distinctive massing, which was intended to minimize its impact on the rocks and dampen the noise from the bridge, was a success. Plus, the scale of the building, a high-rise and a low-rise area, rankled. Gophers also responded to the community's desires by including large internal communal areas in Sirius. This one, for example, with wood-sheathed ceilings and unique wood cave art, as he called it, broke the mold of standard government issue. Despite its failure to list it, government suddenly decided that Sirius was iconic, as stated in this offering for sale. RFQs were held in June 2018, followed by a bid period that closed 2 weeks ago, with a minimum bid of $100 million Australian. Maya Demetriou, seen here in her living room, was Sirius's last resident. 91 years old and legally blind, she became the public face of the SOS fight to save Sirius. Sydney Lord Mayor Clover Moore called Myra a champion and said, "From every point of view, social, environmental, heritage, and community, what is happening is wrong." We interviewed Myra in January, by which time she'd put up an SOS sign in her window. "I will continue to fight," she said. "Are we to be the only major city in the world without public housing? It's ridiculous." Myra left in February 2018 and took the SOS lights with her. SOS's bid of $120 million was too low. 6 developers made the short list, of which 2 were rumored to want to keep the building. There were new elections in March 2019 and a good chance that a change in government. If Sirius still stands, it may well become a political football. Thank you, and stay tuned. That was hard.